Has Trump surrendered to Vladimir Putin? Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, that's the cry now from many in the liberal media, the Democrats, and of course, warmongering neoconservatives in the Republican Party and in official Washington. So, let me give you all the absolute latest, because there are very dramatic developments taking place almost as I speak. President Trump, over the last 24 to 36 hours, has now had multiple conversations directly with both Russian President Vladimir Putin, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He now says that they are on the verge of a possible settlement, a negotiated settlement to finally end the nearly 3-year-long, brutal, devastating war in Ukraine. Millions are dead. Hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers dead. Hundreds of thousands more maimed. Ukrainian soldiers, hundreds of thousands dead, hundreds of thousands maimed. Ukraine itself has been absolutely devastated. It is effectively now a pile of rubble. Its infrastructure has been smashed. 10 million refugees have fled the country. It will take at least 2 generations to even begin to rebuild what this war has destroyed in less than 3 years. The Ukrainian people want peace. The Russian people want peace. More importantly, in terms of these negotiated settlements, Putin now has told Trump he is ready to make a deal. He wants peace. Zelensky, speaking now for the Ukrainian government, says his army is breaking, morale is low, the people of Ukraine are utterly exhausted. Zelensky and the Ukrainian government want peace. Trump now has said he is going to meet directly with Putin, maybe in Saudi Arabia, maybe actually even in Moscow, and have Putin then come to the United States. He also wants to meet face-to-face with Zelensky, preferably either in Saudi Arabia or in the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv. So, Trump now says he has spoken to both men directly on the phone. They will also meet face-to-face in person, and within the next several weeks, here are now the contours of a deal. This is now what Trump is essentially proposing. Both Zelensky and Putin now believe we are close to signing on the dotted line. President Trump, through his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, who now is in Europe, in Brussels today, in Munich, told the Ukrainian government and all of the European allies that Ukraine will not return to its 2014 borders. That the dream of reclaiming all of the territory that it has lost to Russia, not just over the last 3 years, but over the last 10 years. Because remember, this war first began in 2014. That is an illusion. That Putin has effectively won on the battlefield, and that the idea that you can roll back these Russian advances without at least another 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years of fighting is a fantasy. And so the fact is, Ukraine will lose territory. Furthermore, the Ukrainian push, and this was the key provocation for the war to begin with, this push by NATO, this push by the Uniparty, this push by the Biden regime, that Ukraine must join NATO, is gone. Trump says it's not realistic, it's not feasible. Hegseth said publicly to the Ukrainians, forget it, we will never support it. It is a red line for Russia that they will not allow any power to cross at the risk of World War III. And so Ukraine will not get NATO membership. Ukraine will not get its territory back. Finally, if there are to be peacekeeping forces to police this final settlement, it will not entail a single American troop. If there are to be security guarantees given to this new Ukrainian government and this new Ukrainian state, a smaller Ukraine, but a more Ukrainian Ukraine, that this will have to come from the Europeans themselves. France will have to pony up the troops. Germany, Italy, Poland, the Baltic states, Great Britain, they will have to put up 100 to 200,000 troops, and they will be responsible for securing Ukraine's peace and an enduring peace. That the United States is not going to put in one single soldier into Ukraine, and that this will be a non-NATO peacekeeping mission. And this is very important, my friends. The details are everything. Why? So there will be no Article 5 that can be invoked. Hegseth has been adamant on this point in Europe. Article 5, as you know, is the key provision in the NATO treaty. An attack on one is considered an attack on all. So, God forbid, Russia and Ukraine should resume fighting, say in a year or 2 years after this peace deal is done, and say French soldiers are killed. If, say, the Russian forces cross the demarcation line or the Ukrainian forces cross the demarcation line, and French soldiers are killed or Polish soldiers are killed or Italian soldiers are killed, this does not automatically trigger an American intervention, an American declaration of war against either Russia or Ukraine. In other words, this will be a peacekeeping mission, but it will be a European peacekeeping mission that will not involve NATO and Article 5. Trump does not want to go to war with Russia. He wants an enduring peace, but as he told the Europeans, this is in your backyard. This is on your continent, your very wealthy continent. You're going to have to spend the money. You're going to have to put the troops. You're going to have to guarantee an enduring peace between Russia and Ukraine. Immediately, as the terms of this negotiated settlement now began to get leaked and are beginning to get discussed in the capitals of Europe, in the Kremlin, in Kiev, and of course in the Trump inner circle and in the Trump administration, the globalists and the warmongers who wanted this war, planned for this war, executed this war, are losing their collective minds. Listen now to the walrus. Former Trump National Security Advisor in his first term, John Bolton, goes on, "This is CNN," with Caitlin Collins, and says Trump has effectively now surrendered to Vladimir Putin. This is now Munich 2.0. Roll cut 17, Mike.
Well, I don't have any expectations anymore. I think we know exactly what's going to happen. President Trump has effectively surrendered to Putin before the negotiations have even begun. The positions that Defense Secretary Hegseth announced in Brussels, which I'm sure I'd be stunned if Trump didn't convey them directly to Putin in their phone call, constitute terms of a settlement that could have been written in the Kremlin. Maybe they were written in the Kremlin and got out in propaganda channels. But it's a complete reversal of the U.S. and NATO position on a number of issues. For example, up until today, the official American position was that Ukraine should be returned to full sovereignty and territorial integrity. That's gone. The question of NATO membership as far back as 2008 had been that ultimately Ukraine would become a NATO member. That doesn't look like that's around anymore either. Putin has scored a whole series of victories today. It's hard to encompass them all.
There you go. So basically, let's keep the war going, right? So now, notice, by the way, New York Times, they've already gotten their marching orders, call this Munich 2.0. So the New York Times is denouncing it as another Munich. The Washington Post is denouncing it as another Munich. Democrats are denouncing it as another Munich. Mitch the Squish McConnell, who voted, by the way, against Robert F. Kennedy Jr. yesterday for HHS secretary. That scumbag. By the way, Robert F. Kennedy is in. And McConnell voted against Tulsi Gabbard, and she's in. So, maybe voting against Trump, but it didn't work. But the point is, McConnell is yelling and screaming from his wheelchair that this thing is another Munich. So, you have the war hawks and the deep state who are yelling, screaming, and stomping that this is a surrender to Putin, that this is appeasement, that this is Munich all over again, that this is going to be a humiliating surrender that is going to haunt Europe, haunt the world, haunt Trump for decades to come. That's what they're trying to claim. My question is a very simple one. This was Biden's mess. This was Biden's war. So what is Trump supposed to do? Just stand back and allow the slaughter to continue? 619 on the break, WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Trump being viciously attacked from every corner in the media now over the negotiated settlement, a deal, an international deal that is starting now to come together regarding ending the war in Ukraine. Huge news, massive developments. Trump has now spoken with Putin directly on the phone. This has not happened between Putin and a U.S. president for I don't know how many years. It's been a very long time. They are now going to meet. They're going to meet face to face, both in Moscow and in Washington. He also spoke, Trump did, with Zelensky, the leader of Ukraine. Ukraine says they are ready now for a peace deal. And Trump will also meet with Zelensky, probably in Washington and in the capital of Ukraine, Kiev. So what they're looking at now is that Russia is going to gain some of the territory it has won in the war. How much is going to be hammered out at the negotiating table, but Ukraine is not going to regain the territory that all of the territory that it lost. It's not going to be returned, as Hegseth said, to its pre-2014 borders. Ukraine will not be allowed to join NATO. Period. Full stop. And if there is going to be a big peacekeeping force to make an enduring peace settlement and an enduring peace, it is going to be composed of European troops, 100, 200,000 of them, separating these new borders between Russia and Ukraine, but not a single American troop. And this will be a non-NATO. So that means Article 5 is not going to be invoked. God forbid, should either side violate or break the settlement or the ceasefire or the truce. So, what does Ukraine get out of this, you're going to ask? Well, Ukraine emerges smaller. Yes, they're going to lose maybe 15, 20% of its territory, but it will be free now to pursue the European Union. It will be a truly independent state, completely free from Russian influence and Russian control. And Ukraine will now be able to chart its own destiny, most likely with the West. So Ukraine effectively ends its dependency on Russia once and for all. Furthermore, there's no question, even though Russia is going to gain some territory, strategically, this is going to be a huge defeat for Vladimir Putin. Because ultimately, Russia without Ukraine is not an empire. Remember this. Russia without Ukraine is not an empire. Now, they're going to gain territory in eastern Ukraine. They're going to gain Crimea, which they already got in 2014. So they're going to make some, clearly they're going to have some tactical strategic victories here. But overall, 80 to 85% of Ukraine will no longer be under Russian control, Russian influence. This part of Ukraine, the much more patriotic nationalist part, the non-Russian part, is now going to join fully the European Union and become fully folded into the West. So, in the long run, I don't know if this war actually really served the interests of Russia. When everything is said and done, I'll be brutally honest with you, Putin is getting something, but it could be a Pyrrhic victory. He has lost Ukraine for the most part, and he has lost now this 1,000-year connection between Ukrainians and Russians. That Slavic bond, that Slavic brotherhood has now been shattered permanently by the war. Now, what does Putin get? Putin gets eastern Ukraine. He's going to get Donetsk. He's going to get Luhansk. He's going to get Kherson. He's going to get Zaporizhia. Those are the four regions in eastern Ukraine that he wanted, predominantly ethnically Russian or heavily Russian-speaking. Many of the residents there did favor leaving Ukraine and joining Russia. So, Putin is going to go to his people and say, NATO is not at our doorstep. We beat back NATO, and we incorporated some of these older territories that belonged to the Russian Empire for centuries back into Mother Russia. So, he can claim a victory. But in the end, both sides are going to have to ask themselves, for all the bloodshed, all the death, all the destruction, all of the bodies, was this war ultimately worth it? That's going to be the question that I think is going to haunt both of these men, Zelensky and Putin. Now, as for Trump, this idea that this is Munich is insane. Number one, this isn't Trump's mess. Putin himself admitted that if Trump was president in 2022, the invasion of Ukraine never would have happened. So, this invasion happened under Biden's watch. Trump is the one now trying to end the death, end the bloodshed, end the suffering. So, this idea that somehow Trump is appeasing anyone is it's absurd. Putin has won on the battlefield. Putin is not getting nothing, anything that his troops have not won for him on the ground. So where's the appeasement? It's easy, as Bolton says, and as the New York Times says, and as Caitlin Collins says, and as the idiots on MSNBC say, oh, keep fighting to the last Ukrainian. You then pick up a gun and go join the front line. The Ukrainians want the war to end. The Russians want the war to end. For God's sake, let's end this war. If Trump can pull this off, and they say the devil is in the details, he will go down as a peacemaker. He will win the Nobel Peace Prize, and he will have averted the European continent and the world from the brink of World War III. Donetsk is not worth a world war, and it's not worth any more of the slaughter. Agree, disagree? Okay, the media now tears into President Trump, saying he is now the new Neville Chamberlain of our time. This is Munich 2.0, or the Munich of the 21st century. The deal now that is about to be made, they're planning it, they're working on it behind the scenes. Apparently now negotiators are already meeting with Ukrainians. Secretary Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff. They're going to be flying to Moscow to be meeting with Putin. And so there is now the beginning of a deal. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, here on the great WRKO to finally end the war in Ukraine. In effect, Ukraine will have to cede some territory, eastern Ukraine, to Russia. Ukraine will not be allowed to join NATO. and there will be a peacekeeping force to secure this enduring peace between these two countries, but it will be composed of European troops, European soldiers, not a single American troop. As Trump has said and Pete Hegseth said, we have to focus on the border here in the United States and on the rising threat of China. Europeans must take the primary responsibility for protecting European security. So, my question to you, do you like this deal? Do you think this is the outline or the blueprint of a just, enduring peace that ends the war, gives Ukraine peace with honor, satisfies Russia enough, and most importantly, gets the United States finally out of the war in Ukraine? 617-266-6868 is the number. I played the cut in the opening monologue. I want to play it again because it sums up now the reaction from the entire media establishment, who are decrying this as a massive betrayal and a massive surrender to Vladimir Putin. Roll cut. This is John Bolton, the warmonger in chief. Never met a war he didn't like. On CNN, saying Putin has won, Trump has capitulated. Roll cut 17, Mike.
Well, I don't have any expectations anymore. I think we know exactly what's going to happen. President Trump has effectively surrendered to Putin before the negotiations have even begun. The positions that Defense Secretary Hegseth announced in Brussels, which I'm sure I'd be stunned if Trump didn't convey them directly to Putin in their phone call, constitute terms of a settlement that could have been written in the Kremlin. Maybe they were written in the Kremlin and got out in propaganda channels. But it's a complete reversal of the U.S. and NATO position on a number of issues. For example, up until today, the official American position was that Ukraine should be returned to full sovereignty and territorial integrity. That's gone. The question of NATO membership as far back as 2008 had been that ultimately Ukraine would become a NATO member. That doesn't look like that's around anymore either. Putin has scored a whole series of victories today. It's hard to encompass them all.
Well, let me tell you what's bothering Bolton. What's bothering Bolton is he was one of the key architects in the war in Ukraine. And so everything that he and the globalists tried to achieve is now being torn up in front of their face. That's why these people are yelling and screaming and basically crying on the air. The globalist attempt to suck America into World War III and to overthrow the Putin regime has failed. That's really now, their dreams are going up in smoke. And let me tell you what I think is the most disgusting thing of all, frankly. What is now being proposed that couldn't have been done 3 years ago? We're basically back at the same point that we were 3 years ago. So, all of this fighting, all of this dying, all of this death and destruction, and make no mistake about it, whatever you think of Zelensky, whatever you think of Putin, whatever you think of the key players involved, the people that truly suffered were ordinary plain Ukrainians, ordinary plain Russians. They were the ones who were used as cannon fodder in this war. They were the ones who lost the most. They didn't make out like bandits. They're not like Zelensky's people did. They never got a taste of those billions of dollars that were stolen. So they're the ones who truly suffered and paid the price. Now, go back 3 years. No NATO membership? We could have offered that then. Those territories in eastern Ukraine, pretty much Russia had them then. They had them within the first week of the war. So my point is, for 3 years, what did we do? All we did was prolong trench warfare. It was a protracted stalemate, a meat grinder, where these troops just slaughtered each other and slaughtered each other and slaughtered each other, and essentially nothing really moved on the battlefield. So what is being offered now could have been offered 3 years ago, but there was money to be made. And that's where Bolton and his ilk come in. That's where the Bidens come in. That's where the McConnells come in. That's where the Obamas come in. That's where the Cheneys come in. They wanted this war because it's good for the military-industrial complex. War is good money. And to me, the only American interest I have at this point, in all seriousness, I want to know what happened to the $100 billion. I want to know what happened to our $100 billion. Remember what Zelensky said. $177 billion, our money, was sent to Slava Ukrainska, glory to Ukraine, for military and economic aid. He says they only got $75 million. I don't know. The rest, I don't know. $100 billion. I don't know. He's gone. I don't know what happened to the money. Okay, so he's saying $100 billion, it's gone. I want to know what happened to the money. Now, I know, we know what happened. They stole it. But I want to know who got a taste of that money, who got a cut of that money. I'll bet you, and don't take me up on this because you're going to lose. Trust me. I'll bet you the best freaking steak at the steakhouse of your choice. A lot of that money went into the coffers of the Bidens. A lot of that money went into the coffers of sleazy, corrupt politicians here in Washington. That's why they wanted this war to keep going. And now that Trump is on the verge of cutting off this gravy train and saying, no. No more money, no more ammunition, no more weapons, no more economic aid. All of this is now getting cut off. We're going to have a peace deal. We're going to end the slaughter. All of a sudden now he's the second coming of Neville Chamberlain? In other words, let's fight to the last Ukrainian. No, you pick up a gun and you go fight the Russians if you're that determined, as Bolton is. Full territorial integrity for Ukraine. Go, Johnny boy, what are you waiting for? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll even buy you the freaking gun. Go and fight, tough guy. Ukraine wants peace. Russia wants peace. The world wants peace. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text us 70470. 70470. No, look, I'll tell you right now, the reason why the media is squealing and, I mean, just berating Trump, because they're afraid he's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. If he can pull this thing off and end the war in Ukraine along the contours, the parameters now that seems to be, people seem to be, the parties seem to be agreeing to, then you're looking at an enduring negotiated settlement, an enduring peace, the end of this war once and for all, the end of the potential of World War III, and he's walking home with the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is going to drive the Moonbats absolutely insane. And so they want to deny him and deny the world and deny the people of Ukraine and the people of Russia a massive diplomatic victory. And I just want to read a really good text, which I think really sums it up beautifully. Again, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 781. Jeff, compare and contrast when Joe Biden or Trump talk about the war in Ukraine. When Biden spoke, I saw a demented, heartless, corrupt criminal with crimes to cover up. A man without empathy who lusts for the killing to continue. I saw a sociopath. When Trump speaks, I see a father who imagines his own son on the front lines instead of in the arms of Russian hookers like Hunter Biden. I see a good man who just wants the killing to stop. I see a human being. Bingo. Bingo. And no, look, to me, what I think Trump needs to demand, and I know as people listen, I'm going to urge this as strongly as I can. What happened to the $100 billion that Zelensky says just has disappeared? Get Elon on it. We need Doge in Ukraine and follow that money. And I guarantee you a lot of it's going to lead back to Washington and right into the coffers, by the way, to the pockets of the Biden crime family. Number two, Burisma and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. We need to know, the American people need to know, was our president at the time, was Joe Biden effectively being blackmailed by that little man in Kiev, Volodymyr Zelensky? Was Zelensky holding Biden and his crime family over a barrel, and that's why he was able to extort nearly $200 billion? Because that's our money that they stole and that they took. I want to know, was Biden being extorted? Was he being blackmailed? I want to know all the details about Burisma. And finally, the bioweapons labs. We know that USAID has been funding them in Ukraine. We want to know the full extent and the full disclosure of these biological weapons laboratories that we were funding in Ukraine, that we know Hunter Biden at least owned one. Minimum, he owned one. The American people need to know, was gain-of-function research being done in Ukraine? Were they doing illegal biological weapons research as we were funding in the lab in Wuhan, China? To me, as an American, that's what I'm interested in. Not in the demarcation line in which region of eastern Ukraine and, arguing and squabbling over pieces of territory. Okay, that's for the Russians and the Ukrainians if they believe that strongly in it. That they have to hammer out at the table, at the diplomatic table. I want to know what happened to our money, and I want to know how many of our politicians were crooked, corrupt, and compromised. 617-266-6868. Okay, I want to play one more cut and then go to the phone lines. Of course, the idea now that this war can end. And remember, what USAID, what that scandal now, the Doge scandal of USAID shows, is how much money our government, taxpayer money, have been sent and funding the corrupt media in our own country. They're taking money from the deep state. They're taking money from the military-industrial complex. They're bought and paid for. So now they've got to toe the deep state line. Listen now to CNN. That's where they get their money from. Guess what they're asking? Now suddenly Putin can't be trusted to make a deal. All of a sudden now, don't end this war. 3 years of killing is not enough. Listen now to Caitlin Collins. Asked Trump point blank. He was very annoyed with her, and I don't blame him. Roll cut 7, Mike.
Do you trust President?
I believe that he would like to see something happen. I trust him on this subject. I think he'd like to see something happen. I think it could have happened a long time ago. I think Biden, number one, it shouldn't have started, but it did. And now all those cities are knocked down like demolition sites. All those beautiful golden towers are knocked down. There's nothing going to replace them. But much more importantly, you lost millions of people. A lot of soldiers, but you lost millions of people. When they knocked down those cities, and they're all laying down on the side, they're laying down just in ashes and all crumbled up concrete. They literally look like a world-class demolition site. And many of them, almost all of them, but many of them, and this should have been done by Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
But couldn't Putin just withdraw his
He's a friend of
today?
CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore, because they have no credibility.
Can't Putin just withdraw his troops? We'll just have Putin withdraw his forces. Like a child. I swear, like an absolute child. No, Putin's not going to withdraw his forces. What are you, stupid? And what? He's going to go to the Russian people, just to show you what a ding-dong she is. So Putin's going to go to the Russian people and say, hey, comrades, yeah, a million Russian soldiers dead, but I give it all away. Because Caitlin Collins, CNN said so. Okay, there we go. Peace. Hi. They'd overthrow him in a second. The Russians would say, hold on, we fight a 3-year war for ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine, and you just, all those gains, you just give them away at the diplomatic table? There'd be a second Bolshevik revolution. They'd hang Putin on the street. But this is the level of the mind of the left and of the media. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. So let me ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Is Trump surrendering to Putin in the war in Ukraine? In other words, is Bolton right, the New York Times, CNN, all of Trump's enemies, especially in the media? Has Trump surrendered to Putin in the war in Ukraine? They say yes. I say no. What say you? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report. KUHN is in national ER. Lines are loaded. Dane in South Dakota. You're going to kick us off, Dane, and welcome.
Yes, Jeff. First of all, that POS, warmongering, bloodthirsty Bolton, who never saw a war he didn't love, is going apoplectic on CNN. You know Trump is so absolutely on, and he's brilliant in what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. And here's the thing that's so simple about this thing that Trump has the understanding. You know what he's using? He's using something that's called common sense. Okay? We don't want to see people, oh my God, President Trump, how dare you? But people like this disgusting Bolton, who just is a nothing, just bloodthirsty, warmongering, you know what I said, POS. And, you know, something comes to mind, Jeff, okay? President Trump came down on that golden elevator. He wants to bring in the golden age. Now every time I hear Shirley Bassey's song, Goldfinger, I think of President Trump, the man with the Midas touch. That's what President Trump has. He has the Midas touch. But his Midas touch isn't so golden as it is common sense. It's golden common sense. And this is what people see in this man. They know his heart is real. It's like you said, Jeff. He feels that these are people like his sons and daughters. I was watching a commercial the other day, disabled American veterans, where they're walking on half of a body. Do you think these warmongers like Bolton, CNN, and these media and these Democrats think of these people? What it's done to their family and devastated them? Not at all. They're bloodthirsty, phony hypocrites. And I'll tell you something, President Trump is doing the right thing every move he makes.
Dane, very powerful, very eloquent. Could not have said it better myself. Just to add to what you're saying, because I don't think there's much, honestly, I don't think you can say it even better than the way you said it. You know, you look at someone like Bolton. Here, let's just take Bolton as an example. One of the architects of the Iraq War. 4,000 American troops dead. 36,000, as you mentioned, crippled, maimed. Americans. Nearly 1 million Iraqis dead. And this guy doesn't miss a beat. Doesn't miss a beat. Nation building in Afghanistan. How many Americans died? How many came back maimed and crippled? How many Afghans dead? He never met a war this man didn't love. He lusts for it. He craves for it. And then to me, with the sickest thing of all, he was one of the key architects of the war in Ukraine. Bolton is part of the uniparty globalist establishment that pushed for that war. And so for pushing NATO onto Russia's doorstep, that's what this was all about. They were willing to sacrifice literally millions and millions of Russian boys and Ukrainian boys. And now after 3 years, I mean, this is like World War I style slaughter. You know, as Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth put it in Europe, he goes, you know what this is? This is trench warfare like in World War I. They're slaughtering each other over, over a couple of yards here and a couple of yards there. This has got to end. And the problem is you've got Russia with nuclear weapons and Ukraine that wants nuclear weapons. And NATO potentially get involved, which we have nuclear weapons. That's why Trump is looking. So we're going to have World War III, nuclear Armageddon potentially, over some piece of land in eastern Ukraine that 99.9% of the world can't even find on a map? Has everyone lost their freaking minds? And so the guy who inherits the war, which is Trump, the guy who inherits the mess, which is Trump, the guy who even the actors involved say if Trump was president, this war never would have happened. So he comes in, inherits this disaster from Biden, and then is on the verge of ending it and saving all these lives and stopping the bloodshed, and Trump is the bad guy? That's Trump derangement syndrome for you. I'm telling you, Dane, take it to the bank. If Trump cured cancer, okay, really, we just cured cancer, I get it. Look at all the doctors and research scientists he's putting out of work. Oh, my God. This is an economic betrayal. It doesn't matter what this guy does. They want to get him just to get him, but follow the money. Bolton got rich off of this war. CNN got rich off of this war. The Bidens got rich off of this war. And that's why they don't want it to end. I mean, that to me is what's most disgusting of all, is that they're willing to send millions to their deaths just to line their pockets. Dane, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. All we're saying is give peace a chance. That's all we're saying. Give peace a chance. Lorenzo in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Lorenzo, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Lorenzo.
Hey, you're absolutely right about CNN getting rich off this war. And Bolton's so corrupt. He's tied to that Bush administration. But, I think, Burns, I think he's going to be exposed. I think Ratcliffe, with Tulsi Gabbard having her position, it's going to expose a lot, like you said, a lot of these politicians, a lot of them. And I wanted to get your opinion on that. And I forget the other thing I wanted to...
well, Lorenzo, let me just answer your first question. You can maybe remember your second. But look, to your first question, I think there's no question. I think there's no doubt that one of the big fears now is that if Trump ends this war, and remember, he's got Scott Bessent now, as I'm talking to you, he's in the capital of Ukraine. He sent his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, to negotiate with Zelensky. and we're gonna get rare earth minerals from Ukraine. Ukraine has a lot of rare earth minerals. Trump is saying, whoa, you think we gave you all these hundreds of billions of dollars for free? Whoa, no. We're not Uncle Sucker. You're going to pay us back. You're going to pay us back. And now if you don't have cash, fine, we'll take the rare earth minerals. So we don't have to get it from Greenland. We can get it from Ukraine. So that's number one. But two, Bessent is working with Elon Musk regarding Doge. And Bessent is going to start asking Zelensky, look, my boss wants to know that 102 billion. What happened to the 102 billion? I don't know. Well, you better find out. So now, look, if you stole it from us, you and your cronies and your generals, there's not much we can do about that. But what we're more interested in who got the money in Washington, because there are a lot of kickbacks. And this is where it goes to your point. Biden made out like a bandit. McConnell, Romney, Cheney, Pelosi, one after another. It's all going to come out that they sat on the boards of these key firms and organizations who were profiting off the war. And they don't want their fingerprints now to be exposed. They didn't think Trump can do this. Remember, everybody thought this war is going to go on and on and on and on forever. To the shock and horror of official Washington, the swamp, they can't believe it. Like within 3 weeks, he's already talking to Putin. He's got Zelensky buying in. He's already talking about a big conference in Saudi Arabia where it's going to be Trump, Putin, and Zelensky. And not to get too much into the weeds here, Lorenzo, the Chinese now want in on the action because they sense that Trump is going to pull this off. So Xi wants to play a role in this. Like, whoa, hey, if we're going to have this massive peace settlement, which is going to be, this is going to be historic. This is like ending World War I. We're going to be living with these consequences now for years and years. The Chinese are like, no, we want to be a player too. So it looks like Trump is going to pull this thing off. It's going to be the ultimate art of the deal. And they can't believe it. And now they're worried they're going to get exposed. And look, I got to tell you, really, for someone like Caitlin Collins, but it's CNN, it's MSNBC, it's the losers at the New York Times, all this death and destruction. And all you care about is your billions of dollars coming in from USAID. Because remember, USAID is a front for the CIA. Everybody has to keep remembering that. Who wanted this war? The CIA. This goes back to 2014. Who were the ones that led the covert operation that overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine that started this war? It was the CIA. This was under Obama. This was Obama, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, Victoria Nuland, John Bolton. He was tied to it. This was a complete deep state CIA operation. This is now public knowledge. So who destabilized Ukraine? We did. Who overthrew the regime in Ukraine, the democratically elected government? We did. Who installed Zelensky? We did. Who pushed for Ukraine to join NATO and basically start this war with Russia? We did. They don't want all this to come out. People are going to hang. And the dirty secret is the ultimate goal. This is what is so disgusting. And to me, so reckless and irresponsible, frankly unforgivable. The ultimate goal was to drag the United States and NATO into a war against Russia. They wanted a world war between Russia and the United States, with China sitting back and letting us and the Russians slaughter each other, and then they just pick up the pieces. This is what the globalists ultimately wanted. This is what they tried to implement and execute, and this is now the thing that Trump is derailing right at the last possible second. That's why they want to stop Trump. That's why they're going to call him every name in the book. Don't buy it. Trump is the peacemaker. They are the warmongers. 719 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, America's leading anti-war conservative. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask you, is it time for peace in Ukraine? Or is Trump surrendering to Vladimir Putin? This is what Democrats, rhinos, warmongers like John Bolton and others are saying. Where do you stand? 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. All right, let's go to Linda in Medford. Thanks for holding, Linda, and welcome.
Well, thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
My thought on this, it was nothing more than a money laundering scheme for our political people. That right there. But my recollection is that I thought the Ukrainians were going to get rid of Zelensky and bring in somebody new. And right then and there, that's when this war started to fester.
Well, Linda, remember, Zelensky, when he campaigned and won the presidential election in Ukraine, he didn't campaign on a war with Russia, and he didn't campaign on having Ukraine join NATO. In fact, he said it was a bad idea. To be fair to the guy, initially he said, why? This is crazy. We know it's a red line for the Kremlin. We know that Russia has said repeatedly that Ukraine cannot be a part of NATO. It poses too much of a risk to Russia's national security. And so he ran on anti-corruption, which, by the way, is the issue to run on in Ukraine. Ukraine's an incredibly corrupt country, one of the most corrupt in the entire world. And what happened was the globalists got they got their tentacles into him, and Biden in particular, his people, and they pushed him saying, look, we'll get you into the European Union and we'll get you into NATO. And then Zelensky obviously said, hold on, if I apply for NATO, it's a declaration of war against Russia. And Biden said, don't worry, we're going to fund you and arm you to the teeth. And we're going to help you win this war against Russia, and you'll be considered a great hero. And you'll be making billions of dollars. You're going to become fabulously wealthy because you're going to steal so much of the money that we give you. And so Zelensky said, okay. And what he ended up doing is he sold his people down the river. And look, Linda, this is my prediction. By the way, Zelensky now is past his 5-year term. He has refused to hold elections. He has banned all opposition in Ukraine. Opposition journalists in prison. Opposition media outlets closed down. Opposition politicians in jail. Russian Orthodox churches closed down. Russian Orthodox monasteries closed down. He's literally jailing priests and monks. So there is no democracy in Ukraine. That's a massive lie. That's a massive lie. So he's essentially now a dictator. Now, he's eventually going to be forced to hold elections. I'm telling you, he's going to get wiped out. Because the Ukrainian people realize we got sold down the river. He made out like a bandit. His people around him got filthy rich. The generals got filthy rich. And our boys and some girls, some women died. Our villages are gone. Our cities are in rubble. And we've lost our youth. The cream of our youth either fled the country or they're buried 6 feet under the ground. And in the end, this is what Ukrainians are going to ask themselves. So we fight for 3 years and we end up where we were 3 years ago? Which is we were not part of NATO and we're not going to be a part of NATO. And those territories in eastern Ukraine, it's called the Donbass. The areas in eastern Ukraine, the Donbass, which the Russians took in the first week of the war. So we were where we were at the beginning. Zelensky's not going to survive an election. I'm telling you this right now. And Putin, to be fair, is going to emerge much diminished. The aura of the Russian military is over. That's why I hear these idiots. Today it's Ukraine. Tomorrow it's Berlin. I'm like, boy, are you people stupid. It was a stalemate in eastern Ukraine. Russia lost half its army in Ukraine. If they can barely take the Donbass, they couldn't even take the capital of Ukraine. They couldn't take Kiev. He's going to take Berlin, Paris, Rome, and London. Are you all on drugs? So I think Putin's aura and authority is much diminished after this war. And look, Trump said it. Trump said, you don't understand what Putin has done. If you look at it clearly, he has made Russia a junior partner of China. It has weakened Russia. Russia has been weakened from this war, economically, militarily, geopolitically. And so what Trump is trying to do, and that's what he told Putin, he goes, I'm actually doing you a favor. He goes, I want you to know, by ending this war, I'm saving your bacon. Now you don't have to be the poodle for Xi Jinping's China. He wants to break Russia away from China. Because Trump understands the only country that ultimately threatens us, the only country that can replace us as the world superpower is communist China. It's not Russia. It's not India. It's not whatever. It's not North Korea. It's not, take your other countries. It's China. And that's what Hegseth told the Europeans. It was a remarkable speech he gave in Brussels a couple days ago. He said, look, you all have to understand something. America has two primary national interests. Our border has to be secure. And we got big problems with China in the Indo-Pacific. That's the term that he used, the Indo-Pacific. He said, we got to counter the rise of China, which is going to affect the entire world. Ukraine is your backyard. Guys, we're going to end this war for you. You police it. You put in the peacekeeping troops. You want to rebuild Ukraine? You build Ukraine. You want to help send money to rebuild Ukraine's military? You send them the money and the weapons. You Europeans are rich countries. Start taking care of your own continent. We've got bigger fish to fry. So what Trump is now doing is he's really outlining an America First agenda that's going to give peace to America, to Europe, and God willing, to the world. 732 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. The lines are jammed. I want to go right to the phone lines. But I just want to ask all of you a question. What happened to all those Ukrainian flags? Do you remember that? That was all like the big thing a couple of years ago. You remember? When Biden was in office and all the libs were like, Slava Ukrainska, glory to Ukraine. Do you remember that? And so you can tell a lib's home, if a home belonged to a lib or not, by the flag they had on their porch. It wasn't an American flag hanging over their front porch. It was a Ukrainian flag. And on bumper stickers and, cars. And all I saw were Ukrainian flags. Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. The flags are all gone, like the money. Just like the money's all gone, now the Ukrainian flags. Have you noticed? That's all gone now. Hey, you phonies, you frauds, you. 617-266-6868. Is Trump surrendering to Vladimir Putin? The media, the fake news says yes. Bolton and the warmongers say yes. Schumer, I think, is going to get a conniption. I think he's going to get a heart attack on the Senate floor, denouncing they haven't even signed a deal yet. And he's already saying this is too much. Trump is giving Putin too much. So my question to you, is this a surrender or is this enlightened statesmanship? Is this ending a war that needs to end? 617-266-6868. Phil in Salem. Thanks for holding, Phil, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff, a fellow Croat. I've spoken to you before. The problem
Phil, doubly welcome.
Outstanding. Listen, it's very easily achieved, this peace. Listen, the Crimea was given by Khrushchev as a gesture of goodwill between Soviet states. Russia gave it to the Ukraine. Ukraine did not have any access to a waterway to ship grain. So obviously it worked for Khrushchev. It worked to make peace between the Ukrainians and the Russians, trying to erase what Stalin did during the great Kulak massacres and starvations, where approximately 6 to 8 million Kulaks and their families died by starvation in the breadbasket of the Soviet Union. Imagine that. So all Trump has to do is say, listen, the Crimea is approximately 80% ethnic Russian. Those people want to be repatriated with Russia. But give the Ukraine 5 or 10 mile wide swath of land where they will have access to the Black Sea so they can ship their grain. They have a warm water port, and then peace can be established. We don't need NATO anywhere in there. You're right about the CIA. The CIA never met a war they didn't like. They didn't meet they never liked anyone they couldn't control. Look at what they did to Patrice Lumumba in the Congo in the 60s. Look at what the Dulles, Alan Dulles did. Please, they never met a war they didn't like because the blood of young men and women greased the wheels of the war machine. And being Eastern European, you and I know very well that my goodness, we've greased the wheels long enough, and war has gone on far too long. And you're right, they want to continue the war. Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex, and the globalists, it's one of their pokers in the fire. That and Big Pharma, because they can control the world between we'll kill you or wound you and maim you, and then we'll give you the drugs to make you feel good or better or cure you. Well, I shouldn't say cure, treat you.
Phil, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Phil, let me ask you this, and I agree with you 1,000%, but let me just play devil's advocate for a second, because this is the argument now that, NATO allies are making, many politicians in Europe, the media here. Okay, fine, Phil, you're right. You're right about Ukraine. You're right about Khrushchev. You're right about how it's 80% ethnically Russian. You're right that, you just give Ukraine 5-10 miles of access to the Black Sea. It's not a landlocked country. We can, this is a deal that can be done. But this is what they say, that what you're doing now is you're essentially rewarding Russian aggression, that you're now moving borders. The borders of Ukraine are going to be moved and altered through the use of military force. And they say that is a very dangerous precedent for all of Europe. That if you look at European history, Eastern European history, as you pointed out, Phil, you don't want to start establishing this pattern, this precedent, where governments start altering borders by sending in tanks and military forces. If you do that, we're back to World War II. We're back to World War I. We're back to what has led Europe down that road for many, many centuries. So what do you say to that argument? That you're rewarding Russian aggression and you're rewarding Putin for essentially annexing 20% of Ukraine. What say you?
That is a Ukrainian-Russian problem. Perhaps those NATO countries who have yet to put 2% of their GDP to their own protection and military, they're fine ones to talk. It was Stalin who said, I will talk with you, but you don't come to me from a weaker position. And that's an Eastern European thing. If you're going to talk to me and negotiate, you better be equal to me or stronger than me, because if you're weaker than me, I've got nothing to gain out of this. So if the Ukraine, with all the laundered money, had perhaps beefed up their military, secured their borders, which what we're doing now in this country, it wouldn't be where it's at. But the problem does go back to the Crimea. And that was the first thing that Russia went after. And if you notice, they went after it the moment Obama was in there. When Trump came in there, suddenly Putin realized, got to back off. Why? Because Trump rebuilt the military. Like you said, Trump was never a big fan of the way NATO's
acting because they don't pay their fair share. Matter of fact, I believe only one European country to this day has paid the United States back from World War II. So these are fine people to talk. These are the people whose own countries are being taken over by immigrants who went there illegally. There is no German culture anymore. The Kulturgeschichte, I took German history, it doesn't exist anymore. So that Berlin's going to tell us about borders. Really, the only smart countries in Europe, if you look, are the Eastern European countries who have put up fences. Croatia,
yeah, like Poland.
Serbia.
No, you're right. Croatia,
Romania,
Poland.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're completely right. Yeah. No, you're dead on, Phil. You're absolutely dead on, Phil. Thank you very, very much for that call. No, he's completely right. He's absolutely, completely right. And look, I'm sorry. This is the question. This is why Zelensky's going down. Okay, this is his parachute now. He's made his billions, and now he's going to sign this deal and get the hell out. He's going to get out of Dodge. Let me tell you, if I'm a Ukrainian, this is the question I'm asking. Okay, I'm an American, so I ask a different question. But if I'm a Ukrainian, where did $100 billion go? As an American, I'm asking it because it's our money. But if I'm a Ukrainian, I'm like, do you know what that $100 billion could have done? It could have shifted maybe the whole tide of the war. I mean, with $75 billion, look how many losses we're able to inflict on the Russians. Imagine if we didn't, the other $102 billion wasn't stolen. And that's just from what they stole from us. Remember, they also stole from the Germans and the French and the British and the Italians and the Poles. Remember, they stole from the Japanese. Remember, they got a lot of money from other sources around the world. I mean, we were the biggest. But they got a lot of cash. So if I'm a Ukrainian, I'm saying, hold on, whoa. Our homeland is being invaded. Ukrainian boys are being slaughtered on the front lines. And our scumbag politicians and generals stole most of the money that could have bought the guns, the tanks, the jets, the artillery, the ammunition that could have, A, saved Ukrainian lives, and B, maybe won us the war, or at least, preserved a lot more of our territory. And both my legs are gone, and I'm sitting in some cafe in Kiev. You know what? Hang them. That's what I'm telling you. Hang them. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, look, the priority now is to end the war. But trust me when I tell you this. There's going to be a lot of questions answered after that. After that deal is signed, whatever the negotiated settlement is. And it's going to have massive repercussions. For Ukraine, for Russia, for that whole region, for Europe, and for here in Washington, here in America. Because they're not going to be able to hide it. It's going to come out. Who got rich and who didn't? Who laundered money and who didn't? Now, I'll tell you this. There's one person I'm 1,000% sure took no money. That was Rand Paul. How do I know? Remember, he was the only one on the Senate floor who said, can we just get one auditor? Remember, he said just one. Just one person audit the money. All the money that we're sending to Ukraine. Can we just have one person? And they yelled, they screamed him down. They shouted him down on the Senate floor. That tells you everything you need to know. 749 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, the Moonbats, I mean, they're going crazy this morning. I mean, they normally go crazy, but holy shamoly. They're not happy with this. They don't like the fact that Trump is talking to Putin, that Trump is talking to Zelensky, that there's going to be potentially now a huge peace negotiated settlement. Probably, it's starting to look like maybe in Saudi Arabia, that they're all going to sit down, Putin, Zelensky, and Trump, and hammer out an ultimate peace agreement. We'll see. But anyway, that this idea now that this war in Ukraine is going to end, and that Trump will very likely win the Nobel Peace Prize, should he pull this thing off, they're not happy. They're not happy, and they're attacking me. They're attacking the audience. This is a victory for Putin, even though they don't know exactly what he's getting. But again, what is he going to get that he hasn't already won on the battlefield? I'm just giving you straight logic and straight facts. So if the Ukrainians can live with this deal, and the Russians are happy with the deal, and the Europeans can accept the deal, then what's the problem? That's the question. I know it bothers the New York Times. I know it bothers the warmongers. I understand that. The Boltons of this world. I get it. But if the Russians are happy and the Ukrainians are happy, or they find it acceptable, and the Europeans find it acceptable, what's it to you? Because they were lied to. They were lied to by Biden, and they were lied to by the entire fake news media that tried to turn Vladimir Putin into Dr. Niet and tried to turn him into the second coming of Adolf Hitler. And it turned out it was a pack of lies. Putin is not Hitler. This is not the Sudetenland. This is not Munich. He's not going to roll over all of Europe. He doesn't pose a threat to the security of the world. We were sold a pack of lies. Now, just so that you know, Zelensky himself, this is straight now from the horse's mouth, came out and said, look, in private, he goes, I'm going to be honest with everybody. In private, Joe Biden kept telling me, and the Biden administration and France and Germany and Italy and the EU, that we were going to have to make a negotiated settlement with Russia and that we were going to have to give up territory. That there was no way that we could end this war without territorial concessions to Russia. Zelensky openly admitted it. He says the only difference between Trump and everyone else is Trump is just saying it open and publicly. That's it. Number two, as Zelensky, you can look it up. It's a direct quote. The door for NATO was never truly open to us. In the end, the Germans didn't want it. The French didn't want it. Most of the Europeans didn't want it because they realized that if you have Ukraine join NATO, it means an automatic war with Russia. It is unacceptable, not just to Putin, but to any political leader in Russia. The former opposition leader who ended up dying, Navalny, was dead set against Ukraine joining NATO. There is no political party, no political leader in Russia that gets more than 1% support that is not 1,000% against Ukraine joining NATO. It is a strategic red line for the Russians, the way certain things are red lines for us or for China or for other great powers. So Zelensky has said, look, really, what we're conceding is something that was impossible to begin with. To me, which then begs the question, if NATO was impossible to begin with, why did you apply? Under pressure from Biden. Because that's what ultimately provoked Russia and started the war. And I'm telling you, we're going to look back on this war as it's starting to wind down now. And I really do hope they get a final peace settlement. We're going to look at this war the way we look at World War I. Like, what? What were you all thinking? That it was almost an act of temporary madness and insanity. And then you find out in World War I, key players who drove the war made a ton of money. That essentially it was the warmongers and the bankers and the financiers that wanted a world war, and they got a world war. Well, it was the globalists. They wanted a war between Russia and Ukraine, and they got a war between Russia and Ukraine. Trump is now ending all of this. And honestly, may God bless the peacemakers. 617-266-6868 is the number. Agree, disagree. Eric in Boston. Thanks for holding, Eric, and welcome.
China's actually the big loser in this because they were paying the United States to send Ukraine just enough money to sustain the war, but not enough to win it. Well, they were getting all the raw materials at half price from Russia at the same time. So they just wanted the war to go on for perpetuity.
Oh, well, you're right, Eric. If Trump can wind down this war, one of the big losers is going to be China. You're completely right. That's actually a very, very perceptive observation because
sorry.
I promise I'll let you finish. I just want to crystallize your point, Eric. China got Biden to fund that war in Ukraine. You're completely right. And they got Russia to sell China, for example, its oil at half price. So the Chinese were benefiting from both ends. And notice, it made China much stronger on the world stage, and it made Russia a junior partner of China. Russia now, for its exports, buying its military products, selling its oil, has now become completely dependent on China, which wasn't the case before the war. So China essentially made Russia into its pawn, and they got us embroiled in a big war between Ukraine and Russia, which, if you notice, Eric, depleted, the Trump's great military buildup in his first term, those hundreds of billions that we shipped to Ukraine, that depleted and weakened our military. So China weakened us militarily, got the Russians bogged down in Ukraine, and then forced the Russians to rely completely on China to sell Russian oil, Russian exports, Russian military products, Russian military components. So you're right. If this war ends, China is going to be the biggest loser of all. Keep going, Eric. You're on a roll.
Okay. Also, I was there in 2013 when the coup happened, and I saw ads. They were paying Ukrainian citizens in Kiev to protest for $15 an hour. And part of the thing was the president was trying to get rid of the American, those labs out of the country.
The bioweapons labs.
Yes. And that's when all of this started.
That's when all this, no, I know. That Yanukovych was the name of the president at the time, and he was overthrown in that coup that the CIA led. Again, he was corrupt, but he was democratically elected. And the CIA said he's corrupt. I'm like, well, every leader in Ukraine is corrupt. That's like saying the sky is blue. Who cares? He was democratically elected. And he wanted to get rid of those bioweapons labs. And that's when the CIA said, yeah, you don't tell us what to do, we tell you what to do. Now, as to your point about those protests, that was the Maidan, the famous Maidan coup, the Maidan revolution. That came out, that was George Soros. Eric, that came out. It was Soros money through these NGOs that he controlled, these non-governmental organizations. And they were paying these protesters to go onto the Maidan Square. That's where the revolution took place, the coup. $15 an hour. So the whole thing was BS. It was all orchestrated between our deep state, our CIA, the Obama, Biden, Lindsey Graham, Cheney alliance, okay, the neocons and the deep state, and George Soros. And by the way, they really ripped off Ukraine. I mean, they raped that country for the last 10 years. Not just the money that we sent that they stole, the resources that they bought up, the minerals that they bought up. Look at Burisma. Just look at how the Bidens milked them, these oligarchs. I mean, they made out like bandits. They turned Ukraine into their personal piggy bank. Eric, final word to you.
Trump's smart to be firing all of these middle managers because a lot of them are agents for foreign governments and getting kickbacks from them. And that's another reason why they're complaining so much. All
Eric.
the foreign influence like China and Iran and all these other places.
Well, China's the big one. I mean, I know Iran, you're right, but China's the big one. That's the behemoth. That's the big one. And that's going to be a very tough. In fact, Trump has said he can't crack that nut. He's trying to rebuild our economy, rebuild our manufacturing, rebuild our border, rebuild our security. But it's going to be it's like the Cold War. That's going to be a longer struggle. Trump is trying to put us in a position to eventually defeat communist China. But he's telling everybody, you can't beat them in 4 years. They're just too big and too strong. So what he's doing now is he's starting to clip China's wings. And that's part of the reason why he wants to end this war in Ukraine ASAP. Because he wants to detach Russia from China, and he wants to end China prospering off of this war. So it's going to take time. It's taken 40 years for the Chinese to really infiltrate us. It's going to take some time to purge them from our country and our government, and you're right, in the federal bureaucracy. Eric, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Remember, there is no Russia lobby on Capitol Hill. I'm just objectively. The Russians haven't bought off anybody. China, they own the Democratic Party. They own Mitch McConnell. They own a good chunk of the Republican establishment. I mean, think tanks, academia, media. The Chinese influence is massive in Silicon Valley, in Washington, in the media, you name it. By the way, I don't know if you just saw that story. Trump again is providing more transparency and unmasking things. The Chinese spy balloon. Remember that Biden allowed to just basically spy all across the United States? The Chinese were using American technology. Our technology that they stole from us to put into the balloon to spy on us. So that's how bad the situation is with communist China. And that's the point that Hegseth is making. He told the Europeans, look, our number one enemy outside of securing our border and this border invasion is communist China. That is our primary responsibility. That's what we're going to try to deter for the next 4 years. So, guys, we're going to end this war in Ukraine. We're going to clean up your mess again in Europe. But you're going to provide the peacekeeping troops. And if you want to rebuild Ukraine, let to the Germans, to the Brits, to the French, to the Italians, to the Poles, guys, have at it. Have at it. It's your backyard. Invest, don't invest, that's up to you. But we've got communist China to deal with. 617-266-6868. Bruce in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Bruce, and welcome. No, I know, Bruce. The moonbats are out in full force. Believe me. Bruce, my friend, the line is Trump is surrendering to Putin. What say you?
Hell no. He's not surrendering. Look, they got Putin. Listen, China's the one that killed millions of Americans with the covert. And where did they get it from? Where did it come from? Came from China. Might even come from Ukraine and their labs. We've been suckered by the fake media news. Lies, 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 lies. And Jeff, I'm telling you right now, did Putin ever launch and threaten to launch nuclear weapons against us? Can you imagine? Can you imagine if Ukraine and that little mental midget had just before it even got there, the nuke that we were going to give them to protect themselves, or if they were in with NATO or whatever? Are you kidding me, Jeff? Putin could have devastated Ukraine. They're right there. Those are short little. I mean, and I just look at it like this, Jeff. I look at our press secretary, the one we have. She's awesome. She tells the truth. She answers the questions. The one that Biden had, she lied. She didn't answer any questions, any pertinent questions. Nothing. All the things that we wanted to know, we never got to know because they weren't telling us. We've been lied to. And then the invasion at the border, that was all a smokescreen. They muddied the water, so we weren't paying attention to what was really going on in the world, Jeff. And I'm just glad that people are waking up. I'm proud of the American people, be it Democrats, Republicans, and goddamn anybody.
Well, you know, Bruce, look, the American people are waking up. And look, just to give you an example, to show you how successful Trump's first 3.5 weeks now that he's been in office. Anyway, just go 3 weeks. His first 3 weeks in office. CBS poll. CBS News. This is CBS. Okay, they hate Trump. They come out with a poll. They oversample it with Democrats. Even oversampled with Democrats. 70% approval. 70% approval. The libs, the media, they can't believe it. They're beside themselves. And the reason why Trump, this is record, he's smashing records. The reason why, it's very simple. Ending the war between Russia and Ukraine is popular with the American people. Securing the border is popular with the American people. Mass deportations of criminal illegal aliens is overwhelmingly popular with the American people. I mean, I could just go list after list, right down the list. You know, barring men, preventing men from being in women's sports and women's showers and women's bathrooms and women's locker rooms is overwhelmingly popular with the American people. Doge and exposing the hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse and government corruption is overwhelmingly popular with the American people. I'll just give you all a quick story. Went to see my doctor, a couple days ago. He's a Democrat, lifelong Democrat. Voted for Biden in 2020. Voted for Hillary in 2016, Biden in 2020, voted for Kamala in 2024. Now, I didn't say a word to the guy. He's just, looking at me, treating me, and he says, I can't believe everything that Doge is exposing. He goes, it's worse than I ever thought imaginable. And he says, I can't believe the Democrats are opposing Elon Musk and Doge. He goes, to me, the real scandal is that instead of saying, yes, find more corruption, expose more corruption, they're attacking the guy who's exposing all of the corruption. And then he says, it looks like Trump is actually going to end this war in Ukraine. And he says, crime is going down. Oh my God, I didn't know that Biden allowed in so many violent, criminal, illegal aliens. Like his eyes have finally been opened. So I asked him point blank. I said, look, I don't want to get too personal, but I got to ask you, if you knew then in November what you know now about Trump, would you have voted for Trump in November? He goes, oh, without question. He goes, without question. Now, when I heard that, this is an educated man, this is a doctor, a lifelong Democrat. If he's saying he loves Trump's presidency and he now supports Trump, the Democrats are in big trouble. Okay, my friends, we're a little late, but better late than never. 8-ish. I know it's supposed to be at 8 o'clock. It's 8:09, but what the hell? Kuhner's call log, caller of the week.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Cindy.
Trump doesn't have to do anything. Promises made, promises kept. He just sunk the swamp. Behind each of those doors those guys want to get in are the smoking guns. And everybody out there marching and ramping up. They should have like a Mr. Game show. And you should have it like in New York City with that chyron going around and all the lights, and they have like whenever there's news, you could have like Kevin Hart and Snoop Dogg, and they could be like the MCs, and everybody out there marching, and little chyrons with Mobs Mabley, how much he's worth, you found out, Mad Max and all that. They are exposing themselves. You should have the president get on TV and say, you know what, imagine somebody grabbing your checkbook. They open it up and invite people in there to write checks. And then you say to your family, I can't feed you today because somebody went in and took all the checks. What the president is doing, guess what? Here's where all the money went. And isn't it great? It took some young kids to get in there. So you just watch the show, and we're watching out for you.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Great caller. Honestly, this week, callers, outstanding. A++. Okay, I promise I'm going to continue to take your calls at 8:30. It's almost like a daily update. I have to, like every day, I have to do something on Doge. You got to stick around. Trust me, at 8:30, you're not going to believe what Elon and Trump and Doge just found. You're not going to believe it. It gets even worse. 8:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, he has spoken to Vladimir Putin. In fact, I think he's spoken to him twice. He has spoken to Zelensky. Both men now, in principle, say they're ready to make a deal, a permanent peace agreement that would end the war in Russia and between Russia and Ukraine. They're talking about maybe doing it in Saudi Arabia. However, we shall see. Details are still to be ironed out. But Zelensky now has said he's willing to give up territory and not join NATO. Putin says, I'm very interested. Trump is on the verge of pulling off the impossible, ending this war once and for all, and giving us peace in Europe. My question to you, do you support Trump's peace initiative? And is he surrendering to Vladimir Putin, as the fake news media and the globalists are trying to claim? Or is he just ending a war that needs to be ended? 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Hi,
There's
Dan.
no way that... Hi, thank you for taking the call. Jeff, let's be honest about this. We could have been saddled with Kamala. What if she done any of this? Can you just imagine the situation that we would have been in? I mean, really think about it. BRICS would have been raging on. China would have been emboldened. There'd have been no respect throughout the world. This war would have continued, guaranteed. All the older women that I happen to meet in the market basket, they'd all still be petrified of a third world war. I mean, when you really look at it, the contrast between what we could have had and what we do have are light years. I mean, it was the weakness of Biden administration in Afghanistan that basically prompted Putin to make the move that he did. I think this President Trump, will go down in history as the best president that we've ever had. I think, really, quite honestly, that his record of success is going to single-handedly destroy the cancerous media that we have. I saw some, a little bit, I flip around a little bit, and they're all worried about their ratings. They're all worried about not making money. Well, I'll tell you what. The only reason why they're making money right now is because they got the news of President Trump. But you'd think that they'd represent it in a way that's actually accurate and actually a little patriotic? No. These people, the media, and all the people behind the media have to fail. And they're going to fail miserably because of the success of this president and what he's done for the world and for this country in what? Less than a month? I mean, really? So the bottom line is we should be proud to have him. The media should be proud to have him. He shows strength around the world. Everything's turned around. I feel much better. You feel much better. We all feel much better. And mostly we feel more safe.
I have been living with the possible specter of nuclear war for the last 4 years under Biden. To be brutally honest with you, Dan, that was one of the things that literally kept me up at night. And when people would ask me again and again and again, Jeff, what's your biggest worry under Biden? Yeah, the border. Yeah, inflation. Yeah, of course, all of that. But I said, I'm telling you, this man could sleepwalk us, bungle us into World War III. And once you have World War III, nuclear weapons, nuclear mushroom clouds, there's no going back from that. You can't fix that. That's irreversible. And so when Trump won, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. Now that he's spoken to Zelensky and Putin and has got them, at least in principle, to agree to some kind of a peace deal, again, we have to wait for the details and they got to actually sign the dotted line, but that now we're moving down this road of peace, I'm breathing even easier here. But I am telling you, Dan, if he can pull this off and end this bloody trench warfare, this horror that has been inflicted on the Russians and on the Ukrainians, he will go down in history as one of the greatest presidents and as one of the greatest peacemakers. And I'm telling you, whether they like it or not, they're going to have to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. Because I think the gift that he'll have given to future generations is immeasurable. Because literally, we were 1 minute to midnight under Joe Biden. That's how close we came. And that's what the Russians and Putin kept telling us over and over again. Don't back us into a corner. A cornered Russia is a dangerous Russia. And that's why now Trump is saying we're going to end this, and we're going to end this as quickly as possible. Now, I'm going to continue to take your calls, but you're not going to believe the next story. On the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are loaded. I promise I'm going to go right back to the phone lines, but you got to hear this. You've got to hear this. And let me kind of back into it a little bit, because I think this really goes to the heart of Trump's second term. This is going to be the heart of his presidency for the next, 3 years and 10 months or whatever, 11 months, whatever it is. He is now declaring war, not just on the deep state, but on the administrative state and the entire federal bureaucracy, the swamp. And what he's now exposing through Elon Musk, through Doge, is the greatest scandal in American history. There's no question now. If you look at the scale and the scope of the money that we're talking about, we are looking at trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars. In not just waste, fraud, and abuse, but out and out money laundering, out and out bribery, kickbacks, corruption, embezzlement. It's worse than anybody could have possibly imagined. Now, just super quick, as this is not the really big story that I wanted to highlight, but you know, all of you know this, just to go over old ground very quick. USAID, they have now found literally billions and billions and billions of dollars that have been misappropriated, sent to the media to push propaganda campaigns, to overthrow governments overseas. USAID has now been found now definitively to be a front for the CIA. Ukraine has been a massive slush fund of hundreds of billions of dollars. As I said, over $100 billion has already disappeared, but there's also other billions of dollars literally unaccounted for. I want you to listen now to Pete Hegseth. This was in Brussels at a NATO meeting, saying the days of Uncle Sucker are over. We're going to do a Doge audit on the Pentagon, on U.S. military spending, on foreign aid, on the money to Ukraine, on everything. So if you think we're going to continue to write blank checks to fund this endless war in Ukraine, I got news for you. It's over. Roll cut 10, Mike.
After World War II, first General and then President Eisenhower was one of NATO's strongest supporters. He believed in a strong relationship with Europe. However, by the end of Eisenhower's presidency, even he was concerned that Europe was not shouldering enough of its own defense, nearly making, in Eisenhower's words, quote, a sucker out of Uncle Sam. Well, like President Eisenhower, this administration believes in alliances, deeply believes in alliances. But make no mistake, President Trump will not allow anyone to turn Uncle Sam into Uncle Sucker.
Bingo. And it was Eisenhower who warned about the military-industrial complex. Now think about that. Eisenhower left office in 1961. In 1961. We're talking over 60 years. Well, it's been festering for 60 years. Now, Uncle Sucker. We're not going to be Uncle Sucker anymore. Not just abroad, but here at home. Listen now to this, okay? This is what Doge, like I said, I almost need like an update. Here's your Doge daily update, okay? Get ready to see how they swindled you and screwed you out of your own taxpayer money. So, listen now to this. Elon Musk and his people at Doge have now found that the Department of Health and Human Services squandered $22 billion on illegal aliens and the so-called migrants during Biden's regime for the 4 years under Biden. And in particular, you want to know where the $22 billion went? This is just one chunk of the scandal regarding the misappropriation of all this money to the illegals. Our taxpayer money, your taxpayer money, billions of dollars were sent to help illegals buy cars. Cars. Honda Civics. Honda Accords. They even bought some of them SUVs. Literally, we were buying them cars, but it gets even worse. Homes. No. I'm not, Jeff, no. You're talking about, we gave them, 5-star hotels. No. I'm not talking about funding them to stay at 5-star hotels. Okay, that's rent. No. We literally gave them money to buy homes. Do you understand? Single-family bungalow homes. It gets even worse. It gets even worse. Not only were we buying them cars, not only were we buying them freaking homes, we were giving them seed money to start their own businesses. We were setting them up with their own businesses. And then, as they kept digging and digging, remember those prepaid Visa gift cards that they all kept getting, $2,000? Go ahead. No. We didn't just give them prepaid Visa gift cards. With the money that we gave them, with the jobs that we gave them, with the businesses that we gave them seed money for, with the cars, with the homes, with everything, They ended up getting their own credit cards. And what do you think they did with all those credit cards? They maxed them out. But then they couldn't repay the credit cards. They couldn't even keep up with the interest payments on the credit cards. So their credit got ruined. What do you think Joe Biden and his Health and Human Services department did? We paid and wrote off their credit. We paid off all of their bad credit card debt. $22 billion and counting, my friends. $22 billion, blank you. So, let me ask you, okay? Seriously, let me ask you. Did the government ever buy you a car? Never bought me a car. Hey, I'm the sucker that goes to the car dealer, takes out a loan, puts a small down payment, takes out a loan, and makes monthly payments on my car. Grace has one. I have one. We pay for our own cars. Maybe I'm the only guy left in this country that still does it like this, but that's how I do it. You see the home that I'm living in right now? I'm doing the show from home today. The home that I'm living in today, the roof over my head, son of a gun, I'm paying for it. Yeah, Grace and I, we're paying for the roof over our head. The government, they never bought us a home. Now, Hurricane Helene victims, anybody buy them a car? Anybody buy them homes? Anybody pay off their bad credit card debt? Anybody give them, quote, seed money? 25, 35, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 to set up because they're dreamers, right? So they have to have a business. That's what we did under Joe Biden. Now, on top of all this, and as someone who has Rocky, as you know, our beautiful little puppy, I love Rocky. This story pains me, but you need to know this. Under that scumbag, speaking of Health and Human Services, under that scumbag Fauci, we spent millions and millions and millions of dollars conducting the most horrific, barbaric experiments on dogs and cats. That's where a lot of our money is going as well. Millions of dollars injecting cocaine into beagles. To see if they can build up immunity and how to build up immunity regarding massive cocaine use. And so they were torturing these dogs. I'm telling you, they were getting them high as a kite on cocaine. They were funding, I swear to you, hamster cage fights. You know, little hamsters in a cage. They were funding hamsters cage fighting. They were funding experiments on rats to see if they can make a male rat into a female rat or a female rat into a male rat in order to see if they could actually, for transgenderism purposes, to help with sex change operations in humans. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. 7-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just to put an exclamation point on that last segment, the $22 billion that they spent for cars, vehicles, homes, buying them homes, small business loans, seeding them money for their small businesses, credit card debt, you name it. Impound the cars. I'm telling you, no, I'm sorry, we're not. Uncle Sam is not buying you a car. You're a migrant and illegal in our country. You're not getting cars. Taxpayers are not paying for your car, okay? We're not paying for your home. I'm sorry. You get credit cards, you pay your own credit cards. Seize the homes, impound the cars. I want it all back. Or as much of it back as possible. Agree, disagree. Listen now to President Trump saying this thing is getting bigger and bigger, this scandal. by the second, by the minute, by the day. He now says we are looking at just in improper payments over $500 billion. Roll cut one, Mike.
That some numbers have come out, and as you know, we're looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. And this just came out from the Government Accountability Office, and they're pretty staggering numbers. The federal government loses as much as $521 billion in improper payments. That's what Elon's working so hard on with his group of almost 100 geniuses.
So, I mean, by the way, the Government Accountability Office, this is the government's own accountants, have now come out and said you're looking at $233 billion to $521 million in improper payments by our government using our money every single year. Every single year. So when these idiots in the media say, Elon has no proof, what fraud? There's no fraud. He's making it up. The government's own accountants, the Government Accountability Office is saying you're looking at 233 to 521 million. Sorry, billion. What million? I wish it was a million. $521 billion a year. A year. Okay? Stolen, siphoned, embezzled, misappropriated, wasted, spent down a rat hole, whatever. Okay? $500 billion a year. And Elon is the problem? Yeah, no, I don't think so. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Mark in Medford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
All right, Jeff, let's make one thing perfectly freaking clear right off the bat. Donald Trump surrenders to absolutely no one. Not ever. Never has, never will. We all know Donald Trump, Jeff. He would not surrender to anybody. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh, you're completely right. You're completely right.
Yeah.
And Mark, just to bring it full circle, what's he surrendering to Vladimir Putin? This is what, Bolt and all these other idiots. It's Munich. It's a surrender. It's betrayal. It's appeasement. Okay, so what is he giving Putin that Putin doesn't already have?
My next question, Jeff. What is he surrendering for? I have no clue. Nobody knows. This is just the word the mainstream media has now been fed by the left, and they repeat it over and over and over again on every single station like they got a script to read. Wink, wink. Come on, Jeff. They read from the same script every day. But I do have a question for you, Jeff. Donald Trump being the sitting president right now, would it be wrong, would it be out of line if our president right now looked Zelensky dead in the eyeballs and asked him, what did you have on Joe Biden that he was willing to piss off Vladimir Putin and risk World War III and put millions of lives in danger? Or should he wait till Zelensky's done? And should Trump wait till he's done and then ask him? I don't know. I would ask him right now because I know the whole world, Jeff, would love to know.
Mark, it's a brilliant question. Absolutely freaking brilliant question. This is when I would do it. Okay? It's up to Trump. It's up to his people. You've got Putin. You've got Zelensky. You've got Trump. They're meeting at a massive summit. The whole media will be there. The eyes of the world will be there. The Ukrainian people want peace. The Russians want peace. Putin signs. Zelensky signs. If I'm Trump, I don't sign. I look at Zelensky in the eye and I go, I'm not signing this piece of paper. And Zelensky will be like, what? No. Until you tell me, or unless you tell me, what did you guys have on Joe Biden? that led him to literally throw hundreds of billions of dollars into that rat hole that you call your country and steal that kind of money, where you were blackmailing the President of the United States, where he gave you blank check after blank check after blank check. What did you have specifically on Joe Biden, on Hunter Biden, and on Burisma, and on the Biden crime family? Hand it over. Not for me. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm going to hand it over to my Attorney General, Pam Bondi. And then I'm going to hand it over to Congress. And then I'm going to hand it over to the American people. We're going to put it online. And I want the world, I want the American people, and I want the world to see how you guys were blackmailing our president. You want peace? That's my price. And I'm going to say, and be very clear. I don't sign, there's no deal. And I look across the room and there's Putin. He's winning this war. Your guys are getting destroyed on the battlefield. You need this more than he does. So you go and tell your people who are dying every day, bleeding and dying, with your villages and your cities being destroyed, that you wouldn't give me the simple documents that I asked. I'm not going to charge you with anything. You're not going to jail. I'm not going to make a referral to the International Criminal Court. Nothing like that. Hey, Z, you walk away with your billions. But I want to know, kompromat, as the Russians say. What was your kompromat on Joe Biden? That's what I would do. Give it to me, I sign. Don't give it to me, I don't sign. And then you go home and explain to your people why this war is continuing. Zelensky's going to hand it over. And he hands it over, and it's game, set, match. Mark, like, no like.
Oh, Jeff, freaking brilliant. And I would add to it. Jeff. And then just ask him right out. Tell me, how did you get Joe Biden to fire that prosecutor?
Mark, I love it. Oh, that would be the cherry on the sundae. Oh, that would be incredible. Mark, outstanding call. 617-266-6868. Again, from our point of view, I get it. You're Ukrainian, you're Russian, you have different interests. I get it, okay? Our interest is this. What happened to the freaking money? And why did we do for Ukraine what we wouldn't do for any other country on the face of the earth? Check after check. No auditor. They refuse to audit a single cent. Unheard of. So why? Why? I want to know. Why? Now, you know, I know. But we want, right here, like Doge, black and white, the receipts. I want to see all the numbers, the names. I want to see it all here, baby. That's what I want. And I think that's what Trump should fight for. And I'm telling you, you want to talk about, Zelensky's had Biden over a barrel. Now we got Zelensky over a barrel. So cough it up. Manny in Florida. Thanks for holding, Manny, and welcome. Manny? Did we lose Manny? Okay, who do you want me to go to next, Mike? Dave in Newton. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Hey there. Thanks for taking my call, Jeff.
My pleasure, Dave.
You're going to find out very quickly. I'm not loyal blindly.
Dave, for some reason I can barely hear you. It's like you're calling me from an underground bunker or something. Let's see if we can reestablish a connection. Jeff in Chelsea. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Well, Jeff. Yes, as far as Biden's concerned, I believe that Biden is under the direct control of Red China. That's why you see all this insanity happen. But with the Russian people, the Russians are very tough, warrior-like people who went through wars in their soil for centuries. Here's my thing. This is the end game of what Biden wants and the New World Order. They want direct war on American soil by foreign countries. And when that happens, we will not stomach this. We will be totally destroyed, especially the blue areas. Imagine having Boston like Chechnya when Russia bombed it twice. You see, study what happened to the Russians and Eastern Europe, because we're about ready to go through the same thing, and Biden is orchestrating it. That is the end game of Biden. That's the end game of China. Biden is just a puppet. And Normie Norm could care less because it doesn't directly affect Normie Norm. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I hope not. I mean, that's to me is the promise of Trump's presidency, is that what he's doing at a very rapid clip is he is reversing, really, he's the anti-Biden. He is reversing all of the treason and the disastrous policies of the Biden regime. And Obama, I may add. I mean, it's clear now. It's so clear that Biden was an Obama third term. So he's really reversing Obamaism and Bidenism. And what's incredible is so far he's almost on it's a massive win streak. It's every day he just seems to be racking up win after win after win. I thought they were going to derail Tulsi Gabbard. I didn't think he was going to be able to get her through. He did it. I thought they were going to derail Robert F. Kennedy Jr. No, he did it. He got him through. So you're talking now, let's just take Tulsi very quick. She's the mortal enemy of the deep state. This is a huge defeat for the CIA. The CIA can't stand Tulsi. The NSA can't stand Tulsi. USAID, they can't stand Tulsi. The entire intelligence community can't stand Tulsi. So, for Tulsi Gabbard now to be director of national intelligence, I mean, this is a massive defeat. There's no question now. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is to me almost a miracle. And I don't know if you saw the speech he gave yesterday after being sworn in. I almost had tears in my eyes, where he said, I've been praying for what is it? What did he say? 19 years? I forget the number, but basically 20 years. 30 minutes every day for 20 years. I've been praying to God that I could become HHS secretary to make America healthy again, to finally take on big pharma, to take on processed foods, the obesity epidemic, the chronic disease epidemic, everything that they've been doing to poison the American people, and Fauci. Fauci now is in big... I know Biden gave him a preemptive pardon. I'm telling you, he's still in big trouble. RFK Jr. is going to get him, and he's going to get him good, and he's going to expose him, and he's going to expose him good. So you got a guy now who is going to take on the entire medical deep state and big pharma and big food. I mean, they're losing on every single front. It's a collapse. To put it in war analogy, it's a collapse on every single front. Kash Patel got through committee. It now looks like Kash Patel has the votes. You get Kash Patel. That's the ball game. That's the ball game. FBI director with Kash Patel, people are going to go to jail. And then now looks like Linda McMahon is going to get through committee. She did very well yesterday. She is going to abolish the Department of Education. Donald Trump is going to do what even Ronald Reagan couldn't do any of this. Reagan, the apostle of small government, the man who famously said, government is not the solution, government is the problem. Reagan couldn't get rid of the Department of Education. Reagan couldn't find what Doge is now exposing just in 2.5, 3 weeks. So we're watching an historic presidency take place in front of our very eyes. And as I said to Trump in private, and I'm going to repeat it now in public, if he can stick with this cabinet, what he calls his super geniuses, okay, the Avengers, Trump's Avengers, like the Marvel comic book, okay, the Marvel movie. If he can keep this team together, he will go down in history as the greatest president in the history of the United States. This will even shame Lincoln. Remember, Lincoln had a very famous cabinet. It was loaded with talent, a team of rivals. Right? In other words, people that opposed him, but they were so talented, Lincoln said, I gotta have them. This will outdo even Lincoln's cabinet. Tulsi is perfect for DNI. Besant is perfect for Treasury. Pete Hegseth is perfect for defense. Pam Bondi is perfect for AG. Kash Patel is perfect for the FBI. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is perfect for HHS. Linda McMahon is perfect for the Department of Education. Let them do their thing. They're there to execute your orders. Just let them go. It's like a boxer now. You're the manager. Let them run wild. They will deliver for you again and again and again. You fly now at 35,000 feet. You've got Holman as border czar. He's crushing it. And you've got Elon at Doge. And my God, is he crushing it. So if I'm Trump now, you end this war in Ukraine. You end the war in the Middle East. You take on China. In other words, you go for the big, you play big ball. Okay? Elon's calling himself Big Balls. That's his nickname for himself, Big Balls. Well, Trump, okay, you play big ball. Because right now he's on a roll. And you can see it. The Dems are on defense. The media is on defense. And they sound more crazy and more unhinged every single day. Every single day. And I think this is almost the culmination of it. Donald Trump is surrendering to Vladimir Putin because he's going to negotiate a peace deal that's going to end this war? If any other Democrat, if a Democrat got the deal that Trump is about to get, they'd put him on, I'm telling you, they'd put him on Mount Rushmore. If they could negotiate this kind of a deal, there would be a statue. Say this was Kamala. Not that you would ever do it, but just indulge me. If Kamala could put together a deal like this, they would put Kamala on Mount Rushmore and have a statue of Kamala in every city and every town. But because it's Donald Trump, all of a sudden, it's Munich. Yeah, Hitler took over the Sudetenland without firing a shot. Literally, without firing a shot. He absorbed 1/3 of a country like this, with the stroke of a pen. Not one bullet, not one troop, nothing. Nothing. As he was steamrolling across Eastern Europe. Putin is getting 20% of Ukraine with 1 million Russian soldiers dead. And his economy in tatters. And the Russian authority, Russian aura now, not a shadow of its former self. Basically, the Russians are leaving Ukraine with their tail between their legs. I know they're getting 20%, but they got the bare minimum at a tremendous cost that the Russians are going to have to live with for at least a generation. What surrender? This was a protracted stalemate, like World War I. And Trump is coming in and saying, it's time to end this. And end it with an enduring peace so we don't see a rematch. Another war 10, 20 years down the road. And how do you block that? You put the Europeans right between Russia and Ukraine. So this way, if there is another war, the Germans will be involved, the French will be involved, the Poles will be involved, the Brits will be involved, basically the Europeans will be involved. Putin doesn't want to take on all of Europe, and Ukraine doesn't want to take on all of Europe. So Trump, again, here's what Trump's saying. I'm here to clean up your mess. And you guys don't even pay your freaking 2% of GDP on the military. And I'm the bad guy? So you ask the Russians if this is a surrender to Putin. You know what they'll tell you? Niet. Ask the Ukrainians if this is a big surrender to Putin. You know what they'll tell you? Niet. It's no surrender. It's peace. Jeff, thank you very much for that call. 617 266-6868. Dave, I think we got him back, hopefully with a better connection. Dave in Newton. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Hear me now.
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead, Dave.
Very good. You're going to figure out very quickly that I'm not blindly loyal to any politician of any party. Joe Biden could have prevented the Russian invasion by putting troops in Norway, putting more troops in Norway, which shares a border with Russia, and putting more troops off the coast of Vladivostok in eastern Russia. Now comes along Trump, and I got to tell you, Jeff, Ronald Reagan, who you just talked about how wonderful he was domestically, Ronald Reagan would be rolling over in his grave if he knew what Donald Trump was doing right now. If you don't like the Ukraine war, and I think you really don't, what you do about war is you stop the aggressor. And Russia is the aggressor, and you do not reward them. They deserve nothing of Ukrainian territory. I'm perfectly happy to have the border patrolled by European troops, not United States troops. That border should be where it was in 2013. There should be no gain from aggression like that.
Well, I mean, how many Ukrainians are you willing to sacrifice? I mean, it's easy for you to say this, Dave. Are you going to pick up a gun? You want to go fight for Ukraine's borders? Dave, if you don't mind hanging on, I want to come back. We're up against the break. So Dave says that this is a betrayal of Reagan, Reaganism, the Ukrainian people, and that Reagan is rolling in his grave. Is he? 919 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Dave in Newton. Dave, you were saying that Reagan would be rolling in his grave right now, that we should restore Ukraine's borders to what it was prior to 2014, and that anything less is a defeat and a surrender to Putin by the United States. Did I sum up your position accurately, Dave?
Almost. Two things. First of all, I'm from Needham, not from Newton. Second of all, I don't think we should restore the Ukraine borders. I think the Ukrainians should be doing that. And given enough firepower by the United States, I think they just might be able to do that. Look, Biden screwed this up royally, as I said earlier. But we don't want Trump to complete the error. And if we think China's going to look at this with anything more than just laughter, they're going to be laughing all the way to Taiwan and into Taipei. Because, you said China loses by Trump's proposal. No, they see the aggression winning, just like the Hamas terrorists saw Biden withdrawing from Afghanistan with tail between legs, and they're going to act. Not everything that Trump does is wonderful or, for that matter, very intelligent, just because he's Trump.
Well, no, but I didn't accuse. I mean, see, now you're claiming that I'm part of a cult, that I just, blindly follow him. I took your argument on its merits. I didn't start with the ad hominem attacks. So let's start with the claim about Taiwan. That's the domino theory. Like, how many times are we going to do the domino theory? That's what this is. Oh, okay. So if Putin gets the Donbass in eastern Ukraine, then that's going to lead to dominoes falling, like Taiwan falling to China. You don't know that. China hasn't conducted a maritime invasion, a successful maritime invasion in over 500 years. That's why they're very nervous about invading Taiwan. And plus, Taiwan is armed to the teeth. China knows they would take massive casualties. And plus, Trump is going to send Taiwan even a bigger arms package. So this idea that, the Donbass is reincorporated back into Russia, suddenly now you got regimes falling or countries falling all over the world. Well, that's what you said about Vietnam. They keep using the domino theory over and over again. There's no evidence for that. That's number one. Number two, as for this argument, well, I want Ukraine to fight against Ukraine's borders. Well, they've been fighting now for 3 years. And we sent them nearly $200 billion. And according to their own president, they stole $100 billion of it. So we're going to keep sending good money after bad to a very corrupt regime that doesn't seem to care enough about their own borders that they're stealing it in a war that they've lost and that they continue to lose. And just to show, this is what I mean. This is a figment of everyone's imagination, Dave. Ukraine has a conscription crisis. The Ukrainian military is breaking. People don't want to fight for Ukraine in Ukraine. Like, I'm telling you what's going to happen. If this war continues for another 3 months or another 6 months, Putin is going to get even more territory. So, you know, Bolton can cry till the cows come home about surrendering to Putin. The fact of the matter is, Zelensky wants peace. The Ukrainians want the war to end. They want the war to end because they're exhausted, they're broken, and their military is shattered. So it's easy with a full stomach in the United States of America, reading the Wall Street Journal editorial page, or listening to people like Bolton and saying, yeah, fight them to the 2013 borders. Yeah, fight them to the last Ukrainian. If you care that much about Ukraine's borders, pick up a gun and go fight. They're taking mercenaries, they're taking fighters from all over the world. But you won't, because, Dave, in the end, the Donbass is not worth the bones of a single American soldier. This war needs to end. It's none of our business. We're talking about territory that has been historically Russian for 1,500 years. From the Crimea to Donetsk to Luhansk to Zaporizhia, this was never Ukrainian land. They only got it after the breakup of the Soviet Union. The Ukrainians themselves are not willing to fight and die for it anymore. So if the Ukrainians want peace and the Russians want peace, who are we to say no?
I don't see any evidence for what you're talking about. The Ukrainians are still very willing to fight, and given the tools, they can do it. They have fought Russia to a stalemate so far, and with untied hands, fully able to use the weapons unrestrictedly that the United States has given them, then I think they can win, and I think they should win. By the way, the domino theory does work, because you'll recall after we retreated from South Vietnam, first of all, South Vietnam went communist, of course, and then Laos and Cambodia went too. And it took, decades to get them out of that mire. So, you let Ukraine fall. Instead of sending money to Ukraine, we're going to be sending troops to Poland to defend, more troops to Poland to defend them.
So you're telling me with a straight face that once the Donbass falls to Putin, he's going to invade Poland? Are you serious?
If this was a FaceTime conversation, you would see very readily that I have a straight face. A little angry, but straight.
So tell me, when the Russians invaded Poland in 1921-22, who won that war? How many wars have the Russians lost to Poland? You think the Russians are going to invade Poland again? The most modern, successful military in Eastern Europe with the full might and backing of NATO? That if Russia attacks Poland, that'll invoke Article 5? Which means bring down the wrath of the United States, France, Britain, Germany, Italy? Right. This is hysteria, Dave. This war is over. Ukraine lost. And they lost because they pushed NATO beyond Russia's red line. The only people to blame for this war are Biden, Zelensky, and the Warhawks. 32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, before I go to the jammed phone lines, joining us now, as she always does at this time, and yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly Kelly. She's the CEO, president, co-founder of Kelly Financial Services. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. If you're a Gen Xer, retirement is getting closer, but are you prepared for it? The retirement landscape has changed. When it comes to your future, don't go it alone. Getting a retirement plan in place is essential. The advisors at Kelly Financial can create a personalized income plan that can help you maximize savings, manage taxes, and put you in control of your retirement. We also have a free investor guide that might help. It's called 5 Retirement Planning Missteps to Dodge. It offers guidance on how to avoid potential pitfalls when it comes to planning for your retirement. For the guide or for a free consultation with a Kelly advisor, give us a call or email kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, I will continue this conversation with our Kelly advisors tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or go to our website for our radio rewind. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, Kelly. To all of you out there, to get a free copy of the guide or to set up a free retirement consultation with Kelly Financial Services, call now 888-800-1881, or you can email Kelly herself, kelly@kellyfinancial.org. That's kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Okay, so look, they're trying to create now this myth that, oh, Ukraine, we could have won this war. Just give us more weapons and, loosen the restraints even more. And we could win this and we could take it to Mother Russia. Look, there's stories all over Ukraine. I mean, this has been widely reported. There is a conscription crisis. In fact, there are TV images of Ukrainian law enforcement authorities kicking down doors, say in the capital of Kiev, to drag 19, 20, 21, 25-year-old young men and force them to go with the conscription because they don't want to fight. So this idea that Ukraine has this war morale to fight on and fight on, right. The Ukrainians want peace because their military is breaking. And their military is breaking because the government stole so much freaking money that whatever chance they had to reverse Russian gains was squandered. And now the people, look, this has been 3 years of a meat grinder. We're talking about millions dead. So it's easy to flap your mouth and say, fight on, fight on, fight on. You go fight on. Everybody's a tough guy with someone else's son or daughter. Now, as for Putin, this phantom, that today it's Ukraine, tomorrow it's Poland. Notice they never put any evidence for that. Show me the evidence, a scintilla of evidence, that Putin has ever claimed that he wants to attack Poland, invade Poland, annex Poland, never mind storm into Eastern Europe. So he's going to attack the most ferocious, modern, advanced military in Eastern Europe that has a history of defeating the Russian army going back centuries, fully backed by NATO, a NATO member? Right. No, you're just trying to create a boogeyman. You're trying to turn him into a Hitler, and he's not. He's a Tsar. He's a modern-day Tsar. And he's behaving like a modern-day Tsar. And a modern-day Tsar is concerned with the borderlands of Russia, not with invading and conquering all of Europe. So, it's a neoconservative lie. Just like they lied about Vietnam, just like they lied about Iraq, just like they lied about Afghanistan, just like they lied about Syria, now they've been caught lying about Ukraine. Look, think about it. If Vladimir Putin can't take Kiev, he can't, people are saying, oh, Putin won the war. Putin, he's the big victor. Really? Did he get Kiev? Niet. Did he get Kharkiv? Niet. Did he get Odessa? Niet. What did he get? He got the Donbass and Crimea, which were historically Russian to begin with. So this is not the Sudetenland all over again. This is not Hitler, marching across Eastern Europe. Stop with the neocon warmongering propaganda. Okay? Seriously. Millions are dead. Enough is enough. 617-266-6868 is the number. Julie in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Julie, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Julie?
Good, thank you. So every single thing that is going wrong in the world right now is literally because of Joe Biden. That we know. That is the one thing I agree with Dave about is that, could Joe Biden have stopped this? Yes. He is the one that caused it. I mean, it's crazy. The people that you think are so intelligent when it comes to this, they really surprise you about how unintelligent they really are. They think that because of the war, that's why the gas prices were so high. Things like that. Let's not forget, Trump was almost impeached because of merely talking to Zelensky over the phones. Remember? And anyways, so Putin had one red line. Do not go into NATO. Do not go into NATO. Biden tried to push Zelensky to go to NATO. You know why? Because he's so corrupt, and he's such a corrupt crook. He had all that stuff going on in Ukraine. He wanted Ukraine to be destroyed. And all of these weapons that they're selling on the black market to Mexico, I mean, Ukraine should be kissing our you-know-what. And I would
Julie,
not
I'll go even further. No, Julie, you're completely right, but I'll go even further. Here, if I was a Ukrainian nationalist, okay? If I was a Ukrainian patriot, say in Kiev, the capital, just, indulge me. I'm telling you, I would be calling for Zelensky to be put in the dock. Because not only, and this is look, he admitted it. He admitted it. We know two things for sure, okay? There's no disputing this, no matter how much these warmongers try to lie. Number one, Vladimir Putin himself said at a press conference covered by the Russian media and the Western media in the Kremlin. So all of Russia heard this. He said, if Trump was president in 2022, there never would have been a war in Ukraine. He goes, do you understand? I never would have moved. Why? Because Trump would have never pushed NATO right to our border through Ukraine, which is our soft underbelly. He goes, that never would have happened, so there never would have been a war. So we know Biden bears responsibility for the war because it came straight from Putin's mouth. Now, as for Zelensky, he gave an interview. Reuters, look it up, don't take my word for it. $177 billion, according to him, were sent to Ukraine. Military economic aid. Okay, I'm quoting almost verbatim. He says they got $75 billion for the military. $102 billion is gone. I don't know. He's gone. He disappeared. I don't know what happened to the money. I don't know. So, according to him, they stole, squandered, wasted, siphoned off, whatever you want to use, $102 billion. I would hang this guy if I was in Ukraine. And I'm a Ukrainian nationalist. And on top of that, as we now know, of the $75 billion that they actually took in, half of it, these weapons, they sold on the black market to line their pockets. Most of this to the Mexican drug cartels being used against us and our citizens. So, if this is a holy war for Ukraine's borders and for sacred Ukrainian land, you stole $100 billion? And then the other $75 billion, you guys sold it on the black market? Do you know how many tanks that would have bought? Do you know how many missiles that would have bought? Do you know how many bullets that would have been bought? Zelensky is a crook. And that whole regime is a bunch of kleptocratic, corrupt globalists who bear tremendous responsibility for what happened to Ukraine and to the world. I'm done. Peace. 9:48 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Moses in Long Island. Thanks for holding, Moses, and welcome.
Good morning, brother. Yeah, listen, I just wanted to say real quick. How you doing today, Jeff?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. This happens a lot because I call and you end up talking about exactly what I was going to say. But it's either people like Dave and I'm not judging him or anything because it happens to a lot of people. They buy the propaganda, or I don't know what else to call it. I don't know. Maybe they're making something out of the contracting and everything. But just a quick wake up call for Dave. They're stealing everything from us. They're selling our children's future into a debt slavery. And if we don't, Trump's doing everything he can to try to stop it right now. I wouldn't send another penny anywhere with all the information that's coming out. Talking about helping Ukraine, we got to help ourselves. These people, how do you hear from the president of Ukraine's own mouth that they got less than half of the money that we send over there and still think it's okay to keep sending money over there? I don't understand it, and I'm still not buying that the other part of his narrative that Ukraine can do what they can do. We're talking about Russia, and I'm not no Russia lover, but let's be honest, we're talking about Russia here, and if they really wanted to wipe Ukraine off the map, it would be done. They don't want that. That's why it's not done. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of crazy that that they're still buying into this, and the fact that they're stealing all this money at home and abroad. I apologize, that's my kids. It's just when is everybody gonna? What's it gonna take for people to wake up? I wouldn't spend another penny, Jeff. I wouldn't spend another penny on any government projects here at home or abroad to help anybody else out. We need to help us. That's what this administration is about.
Moses, really well said. No, and look, Moses, a really good friend of the show, ally of the show, Greg, sent me a really good email, maybe 10, 15 minutes ago. But he said, look, Dave doesn't play chess. Because if he played chess, he would understand. Okay, just let's play it out. We really send everything we have to Ukraine. I mean, we give them everything. And we say the gloves are off. The gloves are, you want to send missiles into Moscow, hit missiles in St. Petersburg. You want to go after, civilian areas, military areas, just really unleash the dogs of war. Okay. What happens if Putin turns around and says, all right, tactical nuclear missile strike, which is very possible. People are dying in Moscow. People are dying in St. Petersburg. The Russians have had it. They go, we want the war to end. Civilians are being slaughtered left, right, and center. And Putin says, all right, tactical nuke. Bang. Right on the capital, Kiev, or the second biggest city, which is in western Ukraine on the border with Poland, Lviv, however you pronounce it. So he launches one of these tactical nukes. And then what? We're going to have to hit Russia with a nuclear weapon? So their argument is, well, Putin won't do it. He's bluffing. Well, how do you know? You're willing to play World War III, risk World War III, play God over the Donbass? Over literally these places in eastern Ukraine, I'm telling you, Moses, nobody knows where they are. For what? Because Ukraine's borders are sacrosanct? So, okay, but Georgia, which lost part of its territory, their borders are not sacrosanct? No? How about Serbia? They lost Kosovo, their cradle province. No, that's not sacrosanct? I can go country after country after country. How many times their borders have been changed? So what makes Ukraine so special that somehow their borders can't be altered? When Putin told them, I think 1,000 times, don't push NATO through Ukraine. We keep telling you, man, it's a red line. Don't cross it. Don't cross it. Don't cross it. Well, you poked the bear, and you're right. This is Russia. Whether we like it or not, it's a big country. It's a military power. It's a nuclear power. What did you think was going to happen? Ukraine was going to win the war against Mother Russia? What are you, nuts? So, Moses, I think you hit the nail right on the head. My question to you is this, because you touched on it. With all this corruption now being exposed, obscene amounts of corruption, how does somebody with a straight face say, send Ukraine even more money, hundreds of billions more? Like, what the level of the mind that would even think of something like this? What does it say about them, Moses?
Well, that's why I was saying to you, Jeff, and I didn't want to be disrespectful to the other callers, but it's like you either have to be in on it or you have to be working for somebody who's in on it to think something like that is okay. And the last thing I'll say, Jeff, is that, guess what? Even if we were to sit there and spend all this money on continuing to arm them, you know what's next? Even more money on starting to rebuild and do this and that. None of this stuff none of this money ever comes back to help us out. None of these countries ever say to us when we're in a bad economic situation, oh, you know what? Yeah, we'll lift some tariffs for you guys. No, I'm just done with it, and I just really wish people would wake up. You know,
Moses, that's why I love it when you call, my friend. You are the voice of common sense. Thank you for that call, Moses. 617-266-6868. Frank in Bedford. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
Thank you for taking my call. Happy Valentine's Day to my lovely wife, Annie. Okay, that person out there that gave you a hard time. President Trump works for us. President Trump was quite aware that he received uranium from Obama and Clinton. You don't think he called them up and says, hey, Valleman, what are you going to do with that stuff? I do nothing. Your country out of control. They want me to kill you. You will kill me. What are you going to do about it? I'm working on it. Strike one for that guy. Okay. What does Putin do? He exposes the tie-in with the deep state and NATO. Calls up Mr. Trump. I do this for you. What are you going to do this for me? They're going back and forth. And that's strike two on that clown. Strike three is what? What do you think Putin did? He knows that he did bad things. Maybe he's trying to be a good guy, go to heaven. Who knows? I can't read his mind. He took out the biolabs. We all forgot about that. He knew about those biolabs. He knew what they were going to do to his country. So he says, you know something? I have to take that land. I have to step in, and I have to take out the biolabs. That's strike three. These people are moonbats. If they don't understand what's going on here, get out of our country.
Frank, great way to end the show. Honestly, great way to end the week. Look, my prediction, I think Trump is going to pull off the impossible. He's going to get Zelensky and Putin to sign, and he's going to end this war. Give Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. Bye-bye.